The Titanic was built in 1,200 days, but why did it sink in just 3 hours? On April 10, 1912, the world's largest and most expensive ship, the Titanic, was all set to begin its first journey. The Atlantic Ocean was very calm that day, and there was no chance of a storm. Aboard the ship were 1,500 passengers, and thousands of people stood at the dock to watch the Titanic's first journey. Neither the passengers nor the people on the dock nor the Titanic's crew knew that the ship which was about to depart had 6 such flaws made during its construction, which would lead to a major disaster. You will learn about the Titanic, the most expensive, luxurious, and powerful ship of its time, and its 6 critical mistakes. If these had not been made, perhaps today, the Titanic would be famous not for its tragedy, but for its success. Before we start, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. So, let's begin. Then there was Captain Edward Smith of the Titanic, who had 40 years of experience but failed to notice these issues. These mistakes were not noticed by the Titanic's operating company, the White Star Line, which had experience operating 107 ships, nor by the Titanic's manufacturer, Harland and Wolff, which had built over 500 ships before the Titanic. The construction of the Titanic began in 1907, and the ship was ready after about 3 years, with the hard work of 2,000 workers. However, the phase of testing it was yet to come. The constructors' trust in the Titanic increased when it successfully completed its first test run. As soon as it passed the test, it was marketed in newspapers around the world with the headline, "Unsinkable Titanic." The Titanic's maiden voyage was to start from Southampton, England, on April 10, 1912, and its destination was New York City, America. The cost of traveling in the economy class of the Titanic was $30, and traveling in first class was $150, which would be about $4,250 in today's currency. Due to this marketing, all the tickets were quickly sold out, and finally, the day had come when the Titanic was about to embark on its first journey. Mistake number 1. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the Titanic began its maiden voyage, and the ship's flaws started to emerge. Captain Smith had been given a deadline by the owner to reach New York by April 17th at all costs, which meant in just 7 days. For this reason, the captain maintained a high speed from the start, marking the first mistake of the Titanic. Captain Smith was under pressure to reach New York as quickly as possible due to the owner's instructions, as it was the Titanic's inaugural journey, and any delay would tarnish the ship's reputation. Every vehicle, whether a machine or a ship, has operating procedures, including speed limits, which were disregarded at the start of the Titanic's voyage. Shortly after, the ship left Southampton port so far behind that nothing was visible except the vast blue sea. Mistake number 2. 3 days had passed since the Titanic set sail, with brief stops in France and Ireland. For the last 72 hours, the Titanic continued its journey toward New York. It was the evening of April 14, 1912. Silence and mist shrouded the ocean, reducing visibility. That same night, another ship, only a few hours ahead of the Titanic, warned its captain via wireless about floating icebergs in the ocean. Experts believe that these warnings were issued at least 6 times, but due to the negligence of the wireless operators, the most critical alerts were missed. This oversight was the second mistake of the Titanic's operators. With many VIPs on board, most of the Titanic's staff was preoccupied with serving first-class passengers. Had these warnings been heeded, the outcome might have been different. Mistake number 3. The ship's speed was high, and the most crucial warnings were missed. The Titanic was rapidly approaching the iceberg zone, but it could still have been saved from disaster. The ship's guards were alert, ready to immediately warn the captain upon sighting an iceberg from afar. However, they lacked one essential tool for long-distance observation: binoculars. Yes, the lookouts were alert, but without binoculars, they could not spot the iceberg from a distance. This was the third mistake of the Titanic. Captain Smith received news of the iceberg when the lookouts reported that an iceberg the size of a football field was directly ahead of the ship. But by then, it was too late, as the iceberg was too close. Mistake number 4. Ships often have to navigate around icebergs in the Atlantic Ocean, which large vessels can usually handle with ease. Captain Smith likely thought the same. Upon receiving the iceberg warning, he ordered the ship's engines to be stopped and the Titanic's course to be altered. Despite his best efforts to avoid the iceberg, the proximity was too close, rendering any action futile. The iceberg collided with the Titanic, but there was still hope for the ship's survival. It was believed that the iceberg might not significantly damage the ship's hull, or that it would shatter upon impact. However, this hope was dashed due to what is considered the Titanic's fourth mistake. Experts believe that the rivets on the Titanic's body were made of cast iron, not steel. Rivets are meant to hold large iron plates together, but cast iron is softer than steel. This is why the rivets where the iceberg struck the Titanic's hull gave way under pressure, leading to the very outcome Captain Smith feared. Mistake number 5. The Titanic had collided with an iceberg as large as a football field, and now the bottom of the ship began to fill with water. This catastrophic event alerted the entire crew and passengers, including the Titanic's owner, Joseph Bruce Ismay, who was aboard the ship. Although water was filling the Titanic, there was still hope for its survival. The ship was designed to stay afloat, even if 3 of its compartments were flooded. Unfortunately, after the water surpassed the 3rd compartment and began filling the 4th, the situation became dire and the Titanic started to sink. It was now crucial to prioritize the passengers' safety over the ship itself. Captain Smith issued an emergency alert over the radio and devised a plan to transfer passengers to lifeboats. However, this revealed the 5th mistake. The ship had capacity for 32 lifeboats, but only 20 were on board due to oversight. With 1,500 passengers and only 20 lifeboats, the evacuation was severely compromised. Mistake number 6. Amidst the ensuing chaos, everyone scrambled to secure a spot on the few available lifeboats. At 12:45 a.m., the first lifeboat was launched into the ocean. But in the panic, the boats were not filled to capacity, and preference was given to first-class passengers. Wealthier individuals were prioritized, and if the lifeboats had been properly utilized, fewer lives might have been lost. The ship continued to sink rapidly, and at 2:18 a.m., a short circuit extinguished all of the Titanic's lights. Moments later, the vessel broke in two and took 2 hours and 40 minutes to fully submerge in the ocean. As a result, approximately 1,500 people perished in the frigid waters of the Atlantic, where the temperature was -2 degrees Celsius. In such cold conditions, survival was unlikely, as a person cannot endure for more than 30 minutes. It is believed that the death toll exceeded 1,500, as some individuals familiar with the crew boarded the ship without tickets. Most of the survivors were children and women. Meanwhile, Captain Smith dedicated his efforts to saving lives and was reportedly the last man to leap from the sinking ship. So, what do you think about these mistakes that sank the unsinkable Titanic? Let us know in the comments section below. We would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this fascinating topic. And you can click here to watch Mystery of Titan's Submersible Implosion and What Really Happened to Titan's Submarine. I have explained it in detail in this video. If you like this video, you will definitely like that too. Thanks for watching.